Hello everybody, I'm Gilbert Rios and this is my environmental disaster presentation on the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami. These are the contents. So the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami was just a widespread destruction and it affected hundreds of thousands of people's lives in multiple countries. So on the December 26th of 2004, there was a devastating undersea earthquake that struck the western coast of Sumatra, Indonesia, and what ensued was just mass destruction that stole the lives of the unfortunate surrounding. So, the stratovolcano on Mount Tabora was the only historical reference that I could find that happened near Sumatra, Indonesia. It didn't happen exactly there. It happened in Southeast Asia, in Silk Road in the late 14th century. So this is the only historical reference I could find. But these are some images of the Mount Tabora stratovolcano of the island of Sumbawa. So the island of Sumatra measures 250 miles wide of over the length of 1,000 miles. That is just unfathomably huge to me. And on the right is the top right is the image of the island, and bottom right is the image of one of its rainforests. It also is home to unique wildlife. In this instance, there isn't a picture of it, but there's tons of orangutans there, and orangutans are pretty cool. So, on the spectrum, it was a 9.1 magnitude earthquake, which is the third largest earthquake ever recorded. So, that should give you an idea of how severe this earthquake was. And it lifted off the seafloor several meters. Who was at fault? Like, it's a little joke because who was at fault? But tectonic plates faults, anyways. So the diagram to the left basically demonstrates how the thrust faults generates the tsunamis, like that process, and the top left picture is just an aftermath picture of the tsunami. So USAID was able to assist the people that were affected, and there were 580,000 individuals that were affected by the earthquake, and they were just able to give medical care, just support them. And these are some images that I found. I really like that bottom left one. Clean up. So, in the wake of this disaster, there was a coalition between Australia, India, Japan, and the USA. We're just able to come together and support this unfortunate situation that happened in Sumatra, Indonesia, and the countries that were neighboring it. And together they were able to sum up a $1 billion package that was able just to reconstruct the damage that was dealt by this tsunami. I decided to choose Module 4, which is about oceans, which discusses the circulation of the currents and how it's able to influence the climates depending on the atmosphere and temperature of the waters. And it also discusses how the oceans, operate in that system. And I thought it made the most sense to connect oceans to the tsunami. So there was an estimated 500,000 people that were injured in the process, which is just a lot of unfortunate people. It was a total estimate damage of $13 billion across all the countries that were affected. It's a lot of dinero. And the damage assistant estimated of the ecological aspect was 20% of the seagrass beds, 30% of the coral reefs, 25 to 35% of the wetlands, and 50% of the sandy beaches of the west coast were all disrupted due to sand erosion, just destruction. So some short-term effects of the tsunami was uprooting trees and plants and eventually washed away. Harbors and ports were demolished. Hundreds of thousands of people were displaced. Land animals were killed by drowning, which is horrible, and sea animals were killed by pollution, which is just bad. And some long-term effects were the damage to the coral reefs, and this would happen because of just the absolute massive power of the tsunamis lifting from the ground up into the shores, and just unrooting the coral reefs. Salt intrusion to the soil and inland. A lot of salt from the seawater seeping into the land of Sumatra. So, some lessons that were learned is that the communities were able just to be more resilient, plan, and prepare better. They were centered for preparing for the disasters, and they were able to just create more sturdy and strong infrastructures into their buildings, and just make them more prepared for what were to come, if there is something to come. Could it possibly happen again? It's very, very impossible to predict, tsunamis, because they are unpredictable. But with the technology that we have now, we're able to assess the trajectory, or we're able to assess the effects and anticipate certain trajectories. And when it does happen, we are able to predict, and the coastal communities, so then they can properly prepare and gather anything that they can, and just be cautious of the oncoming tsunami, hurricane, or anything. But yeah, it was a very unfortunate situation. I did enjoy researching this environmental disaster. These are my cited sources, and that is all I have. My presentation is concluded. I hope you guys have a very beautiful rest of your night, and happy holidays.